Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with our series, Teleological Arguments for the Existence of God. In this video, we're going to be looking at objections to abductive arguments for the existence of God. If you haven't watched my previous video on teleological abductive arguments, you should check that one out now because that's the argument we're going to kind of be objecting to in this video. You should also check out my video on abduction in general. I understand it's a long video, but it has a lot of kind of the beginnings of some of the objections we're going to offer here and explain some of really the problems with abduction as a method of argument. So if you've checked those videos out already, or you just want to check this one out, let's get started. So, this is the argument as we offered it in the previous video. Note that you can plug in a bunch of different things for N or for R, different qualities or different objects, but the basic form of the argument for abduction is just going to remain the same. And it's the form of the argument, not the specific items that we're really objecting to here. So, the first premise is there exists some object in nature, N, that exhibits some strange or out-of-place quality, R. Well, such an argument is going to be insufficient to prove a God that created the universe. Even if it succeeds, only a God that created organic matter, for example, could be proven. And this could just as easily be an alien race. Why is this the case? Well, there's no way for everything in the universe to exhibit a strange quality, as this must mean that all of the universe is different from something more common that we can observe that's more normal in some way. Yet, the only thing that we can observe is, in fact, the universe. Basically, for something to be out of place, there has to be a common pattern that it's out of place from. Sure, the Earth might be out of place as a planet, but the whole universe can't be out of place from everything because that's everything we understand. And even if it was out of place from a bunch of other universes that we don't have access to, that would still only imply that God created this universe, not all universes and everything. So, this is going to be a problem for getting a God that does all the things the theist wants it to, even if the argument succeeds completely. Next up, the hypothesis that N was deliberately and intentionally designed would adequately explain R, and in fact make it not strange or surprising. It seems that even if such a hypothesis would make the R not strange or surprising, it would introduce a number of more strange things that require explanation. Namely, God. Basically, it's surprising that there's one being that in all ways is different from all others. Organic matter might seem strange compared to non-organic matter, but immaterial matter is really weird compared to material matter. God is by definition an anomaly, and he can't be explained himself. We might, with this hypothesis, lose one small surprise, the surprise of organic matter, or a planet that supports life. But we gain a much bigger one, with, in principle, no hypothesis that can explain it away. So if we're looking for kind of a net gain of lack of surprising facts, we definitely have not got that with the hypothesis that God created everything. We've in fact gotten a lot more surprising, weird, and spooky things. In fact, that hypothesis is the best explanation for R. This is probably the most common place that people object to this argument. Why? Because there's an objection that comes from the scientific community known as the theory of evolution. The common scientific objection to this premise is that evolution better explains the phenomenon than the design hypothesis. Now, the full debate on evolution versus creationism can be waged elsewhere. That's not what we're trying to get into here. What it does seem to me is that even the most staunch advocates of either side have to admit that it's possible that the other hypothesis maybe better explains the phenomenon. It seems strange to say that one hypothesis is far and above over the other one. Note, if you're a scientist and getting all hot and bothered by this, I have a lot of videos that explain some of the reasons we can be skeptical of scientific claims and science as a method, induction as a method, and all such things. The point is that labeling one as clearly the best hypothesis is going to be spurious at best. Science is going to have a lot of other tools for supporting evolution other than abduction, so it shouldn't be as worried. But if this is the only way that the theist is going to be supporting God, because we've knocked some of the other arguments, like the ontological or the cosmological argument, out from under them, this is going to be quite problematic, because it seems, at the very least, on the same par with evolution, if not one or the other creeping a little bit ahead. And while I mentioned in the last video that a Bayesian justification for this claim could be offered, basically claiming that the evidence R confirms this hypothesis better than any other, that can be countermanded by another Bayesian claim that just has different prior probabilities, which shows evolution to be better confirmed by the evidence. This should not make us more confident in either hypothesis, but rather just dubious of Bayesian confirmation theory. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about Bayesian justification or confirmation, you should check out my series on Bayesian epistemology. One way or another, the problem of the priors once again is going to rear its head here and cause some problems for any Bayesian justification, because if you can justify two completely contradictory hypotheses with Bayesian justification theory, it seems to be quite problematic. Finally, for the conclusion, therefore, it's probable that some things in nature are products of deliberate and intentional design. If you want to object to this, I would refer you to my video on abduction, because this assumes that abduction is a method that is likely to provide truth in some way. Yet, there are some strong objections to this claim that I present in that video. However, if you do believe in abduction, the conclusion is going to follow from the premises. But even if you're confident in abduction as a method, the abductive arguments for design were much stronger before the theory of evolution came along. And they were much more commonly offered at that point, because when you think about it, if we don't have evolution to explain the variety of life we see in the world, the only sensible thing to conclude seems to be something like the design hypothesis. Now, one must do a lot of work to make design seem to be a better way to explain the evidence we have, or at least a lot more work than you had to do before the theory of evolution came along. So, those were abductive arguments for the existence of God and some objections to them. In the next video, we're going to look at what to me is the strongest of the design arguments, the teleological arguments, the cosmic fine-tuning argument, and hopefully do quite a series objecting to it. So, watch this video and more here at Carneades.org, and stay skeptical, everybody.